Hey everybody, welcome to Life with Brock, and today I am presenting to you a tutorial video on how to build this Thanos. I showcased it a few videos back and there was some interest in me showing a tutorial video, so here it is. I got a lot of footage. I don't know if this is going to be a 2 to 3 part series, but anyways, this is a custom that if you're just starting out, you should give a try because it's not that difficult to do and it will help develop your skill. So let's go to my workbench, aka the kitchen table, and I'll show you how to build this thing. So I actually started building this back at the beginning of last year before I even had a YouTube. So I had already done a lot of kit bashing. And what you're seeing here is I'm using the Hulkbuster Bath and the Marvel Select Thanos to make this new figure. There's really minimal kit bashing required, and as I'm not sure if you can tell here, but I've affixed the lower portion of the Marvel Select arm to the shoulder of the bath, and as you can see here, there's the peg from the Marvel Select Thanos. I cut that off. I cut off the peg from the Juggernaut shoulder, and now I've glued it into place, just using crazy glue, and then I've put the 2 pound or the 2 compound epoxy just to make it a little bit more secure. So what I did was I dremeled off the top part of the Juggernaut boot and then I resculpted it, and by resculpting it I try to make it look like the Marvel Select boot. It's not a very good job, but so I kind of faked it, okay guys. I put the epoxy sculpt on there and then I used a toothpick Glen Webb style and just try to make it look like those Marvel Select boots. If you've never used clay before, at least this epoxy sculpt, it's a two-part compound that you take part A and part B, you mix it together, and you form something that looks like that. You after you rub it together, you let it sit for like 20 minutes or so. It's kind of sticky, so you'll see me use water here, and that's it. You got about like a 2 hour window before it starts really hardening and it's not malleable anymore. So what you can see here, I got that Thanos shoulder thing. I don't even know what the heck to call it, but the Juggernaut bath is wider, so I had to cut the Marvel Select piece, and then once I glued it on there, obviously there's a gap. So what I'm using this epoxy sculpt is just to fill in that gap. There's no rhyme or reason of how I'm doing this, and maybe somebody who's watching this that's more experienced than me in using this thing and how to go about it. But all I'm going to be doing here is just giving him a rub down. I'm giving Thanos a rub down here just to fill in that gap, and that's what you're going to see me do. I think I spent, gosh, I want maybe a half hour just working on this piece, just rubbing it down to get it smooth so it looked like it was part of the original. And obviously this is not something I do for a living. This is something I do for a hobby, and I'm a beginner when it comes to working with clay. Just know that the more experience you get, the easier it'll get. Maybe take some lessons. I wish I would have done some art in school. If you're young and you still have an opportunity to do it, go back and take some pottery class. I'm sure you will learn some techniques to help smooth things out. But this is the best I could do, and that's what you're getting in this video. This video isn't going to be entirely chronological. There's going to be, as you can see, it's already primed. I did that so I could test rub spots, etc. But I just want you to be able to see the processes. You see me using a toothpick here, and I got this from Glen Webb, and he would use a toothpick when he was sculpting, and it ends up being a pretty good tool to have. Make sure you have some toothpicks if you don't have any actual sculpting tools. And this is just me getting some paints for selection. I mainly use Vallejo colors. I use some Game Work colors as well, but I prefer the Vallejo. They're easy to use for me. So now I am going to prep the joints for paint, and as you can see, I've already done that leg. Now typically what the best practice is to completely undo the joints. I didn't do it here. I just actually shaved down the joints, and I'm going to show you what I'm doing because this figure is larger, and I was able to, at least I felt like I could do the figure and get the result I wanted, because it's a larger figure. It's easier to get the tools in the joints. It's easier to get the sandpaper in the joints and get the result I want from this. So this is just going to be me dremeling out some of the plastic and then sanding it down to smooth it out. And the reason you want to do that is to prevent the paint rub. So once the joints are done, then you lay down a base coat, and I've chosen this blue. And now, as you can see, I'm using an airbrush here, but however, you can do this base layer. Actually, you can do any layers with just a brush. It's fine. You want to lay on the paint very thinly, let it dry in between coats, and just build your way up, even for the base coat. So you can see that the figure's already been primed, and the method I used to prime it, I didn't show it here. It's Senethol priming. I cover that in the Yoda build. I'll link it up on the tabs above, so go take a look at those videos that I put out for that priming technique. But that's what I'm doing here. And as you can see, some of the parts didn't get completely primed, and for me, I thought it was fine because I wanted a different levels of shading and highlights, and those are the areas when you do Senethol priming that they end up standing out anyway. I probably should have primed it, but for whatever reason I ended up missing. Remember, this is not a professional job. There's going to be people that do 1,000 times better than I do. However, my results are fine, and I'm learning as well too as I'm getting experience. So again, I'm building up the layers slowly, and you'll see the final base layer is going to be darker. You may notice the difference between the footages. Some of are clearer than others. Well, some of this was from some live sessions I did on Facebook, so I had to transfer over the video, and it only copies in 720p. The other stuff is higher, 1080p, and even on 4K. If you have a 4K TV, you'll be seeing some of this footage there. You can tell some of that blue is getting darker already on that leg, and you'll notice that when you do Senethol priming, it naturally highlights the areas for you, since you're laying down the paint in thin layers. And again, you can do this with a brush. So if you don't have an airbrush, you don't need an airbrush. Just remember to do nice even coats. Let it dry in between. And the reason it's important to let it dry in between is that you don't want to lift up paint. It's also a good idea to have photographs or images that you're going off. As you saw there, I want it to look like the one on the left, the lighter blue and the highlights. And you'll see after I lay down this base coat, and the base coat is laid down, I'm going to go back over it with an airbrush, and the angle, I'm actually using the angle to dictate where the highlights will be, and you'll see this here shortly once I'm done with this base coat. You want to make sure you're covering the areas and building up slowly. You don't want to just lay down a super thick paint layer. Right there, that's pretty much almost a done deal with the base. I think I'm going to do some more painting after. I did do some more base coating after this, but you're starting to see those highlights. That's highlighted itself. I didn't do anything special. That was just based from the priming, and it's looking pretty darn good.
Now, do you see here?
So now what I ended up doing is I ended up testing the paint, and this is
you see the rub
this was
spots.
just the,
Now
the
I have to
first
take
base
care of
layer
that.
or almost.
I didn't shave
the
these
base layer,
down
not
because
the
I
full
didn't think
base layer,
it
but
was
as you
going
can
to
see,
affect there.
I missed
apparently
this spot,
they
and in the sense I missed it is
so
I
now
didn't
I have to do
drill
something
it down
to prevent
because
that
I didn't think it was going to be an issue.
So
And I couldn't tell with the base coat that it was going to do this, and it was only after I applied this base layer that it ended up happening to the painting. So now I'm going back and I'm sanding that area down. I'm dremeling down that area so it does not become a paint rub issue. And here in this next, there's my neighbor with his motorcycle. And there's the final base coat. As you can see, it's a deeper blue. It's a beautiful blue. I really enjoy this color. Right there, the air blue, the 71.004 was beautiful color. So now what I'm doing, this is what I was talking about earlier. Now I'm using a lighter shade of blue, and I'm spraying it like from this angle, from the top angle, And what that's going to do, it's just going to catch on to the raised areas, and that is going to be the highlights, or some of the highlights that it's creating. Now, the way you would do this with a paintbrush is you would use that lighter color and you would go over those same areas. You would have to have an idea where you want to put it. Uh, and then you would just go slowly but surely over this area. With the airbrush, at least from my experience, it went a lot quicker, and I got the result that I really enjoyed. There we go. Finally, the motorcycle is done. Life with Brock, people. This is real life stuff here. Even when I'm doing voiceovers, I can't. I need a booth. Give me a booth. I need a basement for my collection and a booth. All right. So anyway, so I've done the blue. Now, obviously, I've painted the gold already. And the way I did was I masked off the areas that I had painted, like in that blue, and left the exposed area, and then painted the gold over, and I did use the airbrush with it. Now the mistake I made here, and you're going to see it, is I let the paint dry too much. What you want to do is, and I learned this by experience. Now his truck's going off. I learned this by experience that you want to remove the tape before the paint dries, because if you wait too long like I did, you're going to see it's lifting some of the paint, and I had to do this all over again. Please learn from my mistakes. Again, I'm a novice where the painting is concerned, and yeah. Also, be prepared that taping, it is a miserable part of customizing. I hated it with a passion. It was terrible experience. I'm sure there's easier ways of doing this. I know that some people use the silly putty stuff, and I'm going to try that in my next project for sure. I tried some blue tack, and that was a mess. I tried some other stuff. It was just a mess. So it's going to go toward your experience, and that's what I'm chalking it up to. So anyways, I repainted that area, and then now finally what I'm moving on to is this gauntlet. And obviously I wanted to get the jewel look, kind of like a metallic look. So what I'm doing is I'm painting that silver, and this is a trick of the trade. You want to paint the silver down to get like a metallic look, almost it'll be like a crystal look as well. You paint silver, and then you let it dry, and then you use a transparent color of, whether it be blue, red, orange, whatever you're going to use, and that gives you a metallic look, and it looks really, really nice. So that's what I'm doing. I'm laying down the silver, so then I can do the clear paint over it. And I didn't have all the clear paints, so on some of these, like this red right here, I ended up using a metallic medium, and I mixed it in with the red that I wanted to use, and it gave me a very nice looking crystally red for these gloves. Some of these things, and I'm older than some of you guys are going to be doing. Your eyes are going to be better than mine, but it's always a good practice to, especially when you're working on small areas like what I'm working on here, or faces, to use something to magnify what you're painting, because it'll help you be more accurate. And finally, that was the end result. So you see there, guys, despite my lack of abilities, I ended up having a pretty darn good end result, and so can you. Well, I'm glad I was able to do that in one video. I don't think it's too long, so you guys should be able to follow it. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments below. I'll be happy to help you as much as I can with your own Thanos custom build, and I will be doing more customs in the future. I enjoy doing them, and as long as you enjoy watching them, I will be putting them out on videos. Thanks again for supporting my channel. Let me know that you're liking what I'm doing by giving me a thumbs up and dropping some comments below, even though you may not have any questions regarding this build. Thanks for watching, players, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.